Good afternoon, YouTube. It's a very gloomy, very grey Thursday afternoon with 4:45 on the clock. Subject of today's review is the Royal Enfield Thunderbird 500, and whether buying a used Thunderbird 500 makes sense. This particular motorcycle is a 2013 make, done about 19,000 kilometers on the clock, fitted with an off-road exhaust, which is sold and marketed by Royal Enfield themselves. And here I must add that if you're out in the market looking for an exhaust upgrade and all you want is a little more substance to the exhaust note, this is the perfect exhaust in my opinion. This is there for both the classic and the Thunderbird lineup of motorcycles. I know there are a lot of options out there, but do give this one out a try as well. So first up, the looks. Now looks is subjective, but I'm sure most of us out here would agree that the Thunderbird 500 is a rather handsome looking motorcycle. The wide ape hanger handlebars, the beautiful yet very purposefully designed 20-liter fuel tank, the scooped out rider's seat, all lend to give it a design that of a very purposeful highway cruiser. In fact, the entire Thunderbird generations are very artistic to look at. Be it the X, be it this, the UCE engine, or the previous generation Thunderbirds. The minute you swing your leg across the motorcycle, you find yourself seated in a very comfortable position. Again, thanks to the wide ape hanger handlebars, the very comfortable seat, the forward set foot pegs. But here I must make it a point to add that although the rider's seat is very comfortable, the pillion seat is pure torture. Anybody who's ridden with me on this bike has often complained of extreme discomfort on distances anywhere more than 25 km. The instrument cluster is not something to really brag about. It's a twin pod format with a mix of digital and analog readouts. You have the speedo and the tacho in the analog formats. The digital display gives you information like odometer, clock, 2 trip meters. It's got a low voltage indicator for the battery as well. It's got average speed indicator, which for I really can't understand why that was put in here. Average speed indicator. And it's got a fuel gauge which never works. It's not only the Thunderbirds. Even the Continental 535 came out with a fuel gauge, and even that never worked. When the tank is filled to the brim, it will show you empty. When there's no fuel in the tank, it will show you half full. So you can't rely on these fuel gauges. I don't know about the new twins that are out in the market. Haven't tested them yet, but the Continental 535 and the Thunderbirds, their fuel gauge indicators don't work. But then again, these bikes were never about the gadgetries involved. It was always about the ride, the experience, etc. Thumb the starter and you're immediately greeted with this low rumble of an exhaust note that lets you know that the long stroke mechanism is at work. It's a very soothing exhaust note, especially with this off-road exhaust fitted onto it. Slot the bike into first gear, and I must add that the gearbox is a very positive feeling one, although you need to get the hang of it to avoid misshifts and false neutrals, but it's something that you can get used to very quickly. So like I was saying, slot the bike into first gear, open the throttle. As you work your way up the gears, towards speeds nearing 90-95 kmph, you are rewarded with this beautiful torque pull. It's got 43 Newton meters of torque, and trust me, the ride is glorifying. The torque is extremely addictive. In this price bracket, it became very difficult for me to ride other motorcycles once I got used to this torquey machine. However, these motorcycles were never made for outright performance. You need to identify a certain sweet spot in the rev band and work towards maintaining those RPMs only. And if you can manage to do that, it's a very glorifying ride. It's only at speeds above 100, 110 that the bike begins to feel stressed out. If you're out on the expressways looking for spirited runs, this is not the machine for you. However, on roads that naturally limit your riding speeds to say about 90 or 100 kmph, this is one of the best machines to be seated on. Be it the state highways, the broken roads, the single lane highways, or the ghat sections. And that brings me to my next point: handling. Handling is one aspect of the motorcycle that the Royal Enfield engineers got it just right. It feels very nimble in the city traffic in spite of these proportions and that weight. And out on the highways, out on ghat sections, it just loves to be cornered. Switchback cornering, overtaking back to back. You'll really have fun on this machine. The suspension is tuned to the softer side, albeit slightly softer side. However, you can adjust the rear shocks. The front, you can do nothing about it. It tends to bottom out under hard braking. And that is something that Royal Enfield needs to look into, especially since they market this motorcycle as a tourer. And you can't have a touring motorcycle shock bottom out under hard braking. That brings me to my next point: braking. Braking is another aspect that you need to get a little used to. In spite of having the twin disc setup, front and rear, the front lever has a very wooden feel to it. The rear tends to lock up very easily. So if you're not applying both the brakes in the right proportions, the bike will tend to fishtail, especially on wet surfaces. Riding around on the motorcycle, although this shares its engine with the UCE Classic series as well, 500s, that's where the similarities end. I have a strong feeling that the gearing is different to ensure that although the initial takeoff is slightly slower than the classics, it is much more relaxed at higher speeds. Even the sound of the exhaust note is different. A lot of people say that nahi, if you put the Indori exhaust, it will sound the same. It's wrong. The bent pipe is also different. This has more of a rumble, it has more of a growl rather than the familiar thump of the classic or the bullets. I really like the way the bike feels. The ride quality within city is beautiful. It gives you a very big bike feel. The exhaust note is very soothing. It's actually a pleasure to be riding around on a motorcycle like this. The maintenance part, although the spares are not very expensive, it's a slightly frequent affair. I have always noticed that the 500cc UCE engines, they tend to consume oil, so you need to be very careful. You don't want to be riding around on an oil-starved engine. I suggest anybody who owns a motorcycle like this to top up the oil at every 2500 kilometers and change the oil at every 4000 kilometers. As long as you don't mind getting your hands a little dirty, you won't really get frustrated with the ownership experience of a motorcycle like this. Now finally, is it really worth buying a used Thunderbird 500? Well, a good 2013 to 2016 make Thunderbird with a reasonable amount of kilometers on it should cost you anywhere between 90,000 to 1,30,000 rupees. And in that price bracket, if you're out there in the market looking for a second motorcycle to own, something to ride around the city on the weekends, for quick getaways, for short breakfast rides, Sunday morning breakfast rides, this is extreme value for money in my opinion. The big bike feel, the soothing exhaust note, all lend to a fantastic package. However, if you're going to be relying on this for your daily commutes, and if your daily commutes are anywhere above say 40 kilometers, then I feel you should look at other options. So that's my take on the Thunderbird 500. Do let me know what you think on the comments section below. Do hit the like button if you like the video, and if you found this video even slightly informational, do subscribe. Signing off, until next time.